Joining us now to talk about green buildings and the greening of buildings is Jarrod Lewin, who's Business Development Manager at the Green Building Council of South Africa. Hi Jarrod, of course we know enough now to know that a green building is not actually a green building, it's environmentally friendly buildings. Probably 10, 15 years ago this wasn't really thought of. You've been going as the council for 7 years now.
This is our 7th.
So I think just give us the context before you tell us where we are now.
Yes, so exactly as you say, 7 years ago the Green Building Council wasn't established, and green building in South Africa was largely an unknown. What had happened was our chairman and executive chairman at the time was wanting to work on a green building in South Africa, and his project team wasn't really receptive. On a visit to Australia, he wanted to learn a little bit. He understood that, one, the climatic conditions between South Africa and Australia were fairly similar, as were the dynamics in the property industry. The advice that he took from Australia was, I'm not just going to employ green building principles on a project level, but start the industry, kickstart the industry. It was a very, very bold move, something that we're quite grateful for. And so, you know, with his love for the environment and his history in the property industry, the green building movement in South Africa progressed. And what we're wanting to do, a very broad statement, a very audacious goal in fact, is wanting to change the way the world is built.
Well, there are a lot of old buildings, so that's the one problem. New buildings, I suppose you could get people to agree that if we're doing a new building, we're going to build it the right way. One thinks of some very good new buildings where light is used properly, so less electricity is required, ventilation instead of air conditioning. One thinks of the big West Bank building at the west of Johannesburg on the motorway where there's a lot of solar power.
Yes.
And they've got, the building I think was designed specially to get maximum intake from the sun going down. So how well are we doing, and what are the measures of how well we're doing? Because there are lots of old buildings that aren't green. Yes,
absolutely. And in fact, it's, you know, your timing of that point in question is quite key. Last year in October, we've launched an initiative, and it's one of our rating tools that speaks to the existing building market. So within our last 6-7 years of existence, we focused really on the new building market, you know, making the right decisions right from the beginning. And we've gained a lot of traction there. We've certified, and the tool we use there is Green Star South Africa, which is an environmental rating system for buildings. We've certified 50 buildings, which is something we're absolutely proud of.
Now these are old buildings that needed to be changed.
These are new buildings.
Okay.
I'm just giving you a bit of a lead in.
Right.
In the existing building market, which we see by, you know, the numbers probably 98% of the actual market, we're expecting within the next 5 years or so 5,000 buildings to come on board with the program that we're running. And it's absolutely where the change needs to happen. Crucially, in an existing building market, you know, there are three things that building owners or investors or facilities managers could look at: is energy efficiency. So we know our energy sources in South Africa anyway are fairly dirty, and right now there's a very sensitive price point. Water efficiency. We're of the opinion that water is going to track, in terms of pricing anyway, is going to track electricity, you know, very, very closely. In fact, we're already starting to see the signs that that's happening. And then operational and management procedures. Speaking to, you know, maintenance procedures, understanding the behaviors of staff, and attuning your building to extract efficiencies.
One of the problems is that a company will say, yeah, look, it's all very well, but I've got a business to run here and we have got nothing spare. Times are tough. Maybe in boom times it's easier, but you know, really it's a good thing, but I haven't got the time or the money to spend on this.
Yes.
So what do you say when they do that? They must say that sometimes.
Yes, and we get it all the time. And there's a very direct and sometimes unwelcome response that we give, is that if you're not going on a green building or sustainability journey in your building, whether it's phased in an existing building market, we understand that there are cash flow sensitivities. Our response there is do the right thing when the time comes up. So when you are replacing kit, when you are reviewing maintenance procedures, etc., make sure you employ, you know, the right initiatives at that stage. And in fact, the V&A waterfront down in Cape Town is a very good example of doing exactly that.
What powers do you have to enforce things?
So we're working fairly closely with government to help progress legislation and regulation. But what we're seeing is we're working with the market to create a demand and to create certain competitive advantages. And you know, that's started to gain and has gained quite a lot of traction.
But you can't fine people.
No, absolutely not. And because green building is ultimately, you know, there is an economic business case. It's about doing the right thing. You know, it's not a sphere that we would want to police, and in fact that we ever will.
How do we compare? You mentioned Australia. How do we compare to European countries, other African countries, in our progress towards what I think will be, you'll never get perfection in this,
Yes.
but you need to keep moving. How do we compare in the progress we've made?
South Africa is doing fantastically. As of last year, our chairman now chairs the World Green Building Council, which is fantastic because, one, it allows South Africa to demonstrate the good work that it's done, and then also take a leadership role, you know, internationally. So compared to European and in fact the States and Australia, in terms of age, we're really, really young. The US market's about 20, 25 years old. But we're now starting to operate at the level of efficiency that they are. In Africa, really, really exciting is much the way that Australia and to a certain extent the US helped us establish ourselves. We're establishing green building councils, assisting in the establishment of green building councils in Africa.
You yourself, what route did you come to this? A relatively new kind of institution, so would have drawn people from different industries, different areas. What interested you about this, and what was your background to it?
Yeah, so I was trained and studied at the University of Cape Town, and I studied property or real estate. And it was green building and sustainability was something I was touched on fairly lightly. And I did some research, you know, in my own time, and realized that there was a need. And, you know, myself, much like many others in the space, want to make some sort of contribution and eventually leave a bit of a legacy. That combined with the fact that I had a passion and interest in property, you know, the two converge really, really nicely.
Could you give a couple of examples of companies that have really shone at this?
Yeah, absolutely. Very, you know, long-standing partners of ours, Nedbank, have absolutely taken a leadership role here.
Of course, they're also positioned as the green bank,
absolutely.
So it's really aligned to what they do.
Yes, but there are numerous others. Growth Point Properties, South Africa's biggest listed property fund, absolutely taken a leadership role here. We're starting to see other banks, in fact, also come to the party. Old Mutual Property, we spoke about off air, very big supporters of ours.
Of course, if the banks and the big property developers are in the space, that enables them to put pressure on the people that they deal with.
Absolutely. And in fact, those are the conversations we're having with them right now, is to take the demonstration or the sustainability leadership that they've shown in the corporate field, to take that to their clients.
Another area I think is worth asking about is government buildings.
Yes.
Is government coming to the party with its own buildings, given all the demands on its budget?
Absolutely, yes. And I'm very excited to be able to say so. So of the 50 that we spoke about, roughly 20% of those buildings are public sector buildings. Government, various departments. So in fact, the new Department of Environmental Affairs building, their new head office, which is coming out the ground right now, has reached the top tier in Green Star. It's a 6-star Green Star building.
So they should, being the Department of Environmental Affairs.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah. The National Department of Public Works have done much the same. They've also achieved a Green Star building, and the City of Cape Town doing some good work. Some very exciting projects coming out of the ground there. So yes, government is a supporter of ours, and we work with them really closely.
Sounds encouraging. That's Jarrod Lewin, Business Development Manager at the Green Building Council of South Africa.